They rested on some straw in a loft until the middle of the night, and then rode forward again when all the town was asleep. Among the many wild changes observable on familiar things which made this wild ride unreal, not the least was seeing the seeming rarity of sleep. After long and lonely spurring over dreary roads, they would come to a cluster of poor cottages, not steeped in darkness, but glittering with lights, and would find the people in a ghostly manner in the dead of night, circling hand in hand around a shriveled tree of liberty, or all drawn up together singing a liberty song. I'm going to stop here. The symbol here is very important. You have these poor, poverty-stricken people starving in the middle of the night, circling around a shriveled tree of liberty. Now, the word shriveled here means it's dying, it's small, it's gnarled, it's not full and beautiful. They have done everything that they can to distance themselves from the rule of the aristocrats. They had zero freedom, zero liberty under that rule. Now they have gained all of that rule. They have taken that power from the aristocrats, from the first and second estate. They've really taken all of the power, even unseated the king, and yet the tree of liberty is still shriveled. And it's because they're doing the same thing to the higher classes that the higher classes have been doing to them for centuries. And so that's a really important symbol here, that the tree of liberty is shriveled. All right, picking it back up again at happily. Happily, however, there was sleep in Beauvais that night to help them out of it, and they passed on once more into solitude and loneliness, jingling through the untimely cold and wet, among impoverished fields that had yielded no fruits of the earth that year, diversified by the blackened remains of burnt houses and by the sudden emergence from ambuscade and sharp reining up across their way of patriot patrols on the watch on all the roads. Daylight at last found them before the wall of Paris. The barrier was closed and strongly guarded when they rode up to it. "Where are the papers of this prisoner?" demanded a resolute-looking man in authority who was summoned out by the guard. Naturally struck by the disagreeable word, Charles Darnay... Sorry, hold on. My computer got messed up. Starting over with naturally. Naturally struck by the disagreeable word, Charles Darnay requested the speaker to take notice that he was a free traveler and French citizen in charge of an escort which the disturbed state of the country had imposed upon him and which he had paid for. Darnay is ridiculous here. He is literally bound at the hands. His binding is attached to one of his escorts, and he doesn't recognize that he is a prisoner. It's completely absurd, but the reality is about to come crushing down on him. Picking up at where? Where, repeated the same personage, without taking any heed of him whatever, are the papers of this prisoner? The drunken patriot had them in his cap and produced them. Casting his eyes over Gabel's letter, the same personage in authority showed some disorder and surprise and looked at Darnay with close attention. He left escort and escorted without saying a word, however, and went into the guard-room. Meanwhile, they sat upon their horses outside the gate, looking about him while in this state of suspense. Charles Darnay observed that the gate was held by a mixed guard of soldiers and patriots, the latter far outnumbering the former, and that while ingress into the city for peasants' carts bringing in supplies and for similar traffic and traffickers was easy enough, egress, even for the homeliest people, was very difficult. Stopping. So getting into the city of Paris, super easy. There's not very much being done checking things. Getting out of Paris, however, nearly impossible. All right, picking up at a numerous. A numerous medley of men and women, not to mention beasts and vehicles of various sorts, was waiting to issue forth, but the previous identification was so strict that they filtered through the barrier very slowly. Some of these people knew their turn for examination to be so far off that they lay down on the ground to sleep or to smoke, while others talked together or loitered about. The red cap and tricolor cockade were universal, both among men and women. Okay, so I haven't discussed this, and I probably should have it earlier. So we remember from Book the Second that the red cap became a clothing symbol of, or the symbolic clothing to represent to the world that you were a part of this revolutionary movement. Now, not only do you have the red cap, you have this tricolor cockade. So it's red, white, and blue, and it's like a pin that you attach to your chest area, whether it be on your jacket or your dress or whatever, and it looks kind of like a flower, and it shows everybody, hey, I'm not just wearing the cap, I'm wearing the cockade. I am all about this revolution. Picking up at when he had sat in his saddle some half hour taking notes of these things, Darnay found himself confronted by the same man in authority who directed the guard to open the barrier. Then he delivered to the escort, drunk and sober, a receipt for the escorted, and requested him to dismount. He did so, and the two patriots, leading his tired horse, turned and rode away without entering the city. He accompanied his conductor into a guard room, smelling of common wine and tobacco, where certain soldiers and patriots, asleep and awake, drunk and sober, and in various neutral states between sleeping and waking, drunkenness and sobriety, were standing and lying about. The light in the guardhouse, half derived from the waning oil lamps of the night, and half from the overcast day, was in a correspondingly uncertain condition. Some registers were lying open on a desk, and an officer of a coarse, dark aspect presided over these. "Citizen Defarge," said he to Darnay's conductor, as he took a slip of paper to write on, "is this the immigrant Evrémonde? This is the man. Your age, Evrémonde? 37. Married, Evrémonde?" "Yes." "Where married?" "In England." "Without doubt. Where's your wife, Evrémonde?" "In England." "Without doubt. You are consigned, Evrémonde, to the prison of La Force." "Just heaven!" exclaimed Darnay. "Under what law, and for what offense?" The officer looked up from his slip of paper for a moment. "We have new laws, Evrémonde, and new offenses since you were last here." He said it with a hard smile and went on writing. "I entreat you to observe that I have come here voluntarily, in response to that written appeal of a fellow countryman which lies before you. I demand no more than the opportunity to do so without delay. Is that not my right?" "Immigrants have no rights, Evrémonde." So here that idea of banishment, of being banished, really comes to a head here. He has no rights. He has been banished. He is no longer considered a citizen worthy of rights under the new government. I'm going to start back over with immigrants have. "Immigrants have no rights, Evrémonde," was the stolid reply. The officer wrote until he had finished, read over to himself what he had written, sanded it, and handed it to Defarge with the words, "In secret." Now I want you to think about what that means. If he is being kept in prison in secret, that means that he's going to be in solitary confinement, and they're not going to widely publicize who they have and where they have him. This mirrors the arrest and imprisonment of Dr. Manette. Dr. Manette was imprisoned through the letters de cachet, through who we believe to have been the original Marquis Saint Evrémonde, Charles Darnay's uncle. He was kept in secret for 18 years in prison in solitary confinement. Now we almost go full circle here with Charles Darnay being arrested in the similar way, in the same way as that of Dr. Manette. So here we have the revolutionaries mirroring the things that they were fighting so hard against, that the aristocrats had been doing to them. Picking it up with Defarge motioned. Defarge motioned with a paper to the prisoner that he must accompany him. The prisoner obeyed, and a guard of 2 armed patriots attended them. "Is it you," said Defarge, in a low voice, as they went down the guardhouse steps and turned into Paris, "who married the daughter of Dr. Manette, once a prisoner in the Bastille that is no more?" "Yes," replied Darnay, looking at him with surprise. "My name is Defarge, and I keep a wine shop in Quarter Saint Antoine. Possibly you've heard of me." "My wife came to your house to reclaim her father, yes." The word wife seemed to serve as a gloomy reminder to Defarge, to say with sudden impatience, "In the name of that sharp female newly born, called La Guillotine, why did you come to France?" All right, it's important here. The word wife reminds him to be angry at Darnay. Remember back several chapters ago in Book the Second, when Madame Defarge knits Charles Darnay's name into her register, knits him into that death register. He will be killed if he comes to France. Defarge says that he prays that fate will keep Darnay out of France. And we see now that fate did not do that. And so he is angry here that Darnay came to France. He's angry that he has to deal with the repercussions because he truly feels greatly for Dr. Manette, knows that the death of his son-in-law will be painful, but Defarge is going to be unwilling and unable